Throughout American history, there have been issues that are recurrent and never go away. It seems that every time you think it has passed, it just comes back again. One issue that typifies this is the issue of Prohibition. Prohibition is a problem that has been weaved in the American fabric, eventually building to the breaking point culminating in the 18th Amendment in 1919. It has continually split Americans on this decisive issue and has made people continually go to farther ends just to wet their beak. The idea of prohibition has been disguised with many different names. In the 1800s, it was most commonly known as the temperance movement. While the 18th Amendment passed in 1919, there was still a very fervent and active temperance movement during the 1800s, before and after the Civil War. The American Temperance Union was the first major organization to form in 1836. In 1873, the Women's Christian Temperance Union was also founded for giving women an outlet to speak out against alcohol, which also gave women the platform which eventually allowed them to speak out for suffrage as well. The WCTU was quoted as saying, "We're trying to make the world home-like." Temperances strengthened as well as wavered throughout the 19th century, eventually leading to the events of the 20th century. At the dawn of the 20th century, Prohibition was hitting its fiery stride. Temperance unions were still calling for change, and with the commencement of World War I, they got a chance to make their mark. With the country being pulled into conflict in Europe, President Woodrow Wilson needed more money for the government as well as a unified country. Alcohol wasn't very profitable for the government, and people felt the grain could go to better uses in the war, with the combined fact of Wilson saying he needed the country to be unified behind the war rather than squabbling over prohibition. The temperance groups had an easy time convincing Wilson and Congress to pass the 18th Amendment in 1919. Congress also passed the Volstead Act, which enforced this amendment. After Prohibition's passage, a large amount of bootlegging, as they called it, flourished around the United States in order to get alcohol to those who desired it. A network of underground saloons popped up, called speakeasies, where men would go to enjoy a quick drink. This led to the rise of large organized crime syndicates surrounding alcohol, such as the crime ring of Al Capone in Chicago. All in all, many disregard or indignantly look down at Prohibition, making it a fascinating time in American history. But with many Americans in disagree, it could not last. With organized crime surrounding alcohol flourishing under this time of Prohibition, most Americans felt this time eventually end. As John D. Rockefeller puts it, that drinking generally has increased, that the speakeasy has replaced the saloon. Most Americans, as well as politicians, felt as if Prohibition was a failure and didn't achieve its goal. This led to the eventual 21st Amendment, which passed in December of 1933, which repealed the 18th Amendment. With this amendment passed, the era of Prohibition found its demise. America had decided to keep the drink and ditch the temperance in the end. Prohibition was a monumental time in American history that had huge implications on America. While the 18th Amendment may have been repealed, some of its effects can even still be felt today, showing how massive this event was in the history of our nation.